Hi, good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay and see us okay. Thank you so much for being here tonight for this webinar for parents that Seneca is hosting. I can see a lot of people already live, so that's great. And I'm very happy to have here myself, Alex, and Patrice. I'm going to introduce all of us in a minute. But before we start, I just want to do a quick, technical checkup just to make sure that everybody can see us and hear us and can enjoy this webinar to the most. So can everybody please say, what can we say, water on the chat if you can hear me okay, please. So just type water. This is the boring part, but we have to do it before we go on for 30 minutes and then realize nobody can hear us. Let's just see. Okay, brilliant. Now, Alex, can you say something and people, can you type? What can they type? Blue on the chat, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex. Thanks so much for coming.
Okay, let's give it 2 seconds. Okay, great. And now, Patrice, can you say something and everybody can just type Patrice in the chat, please?
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Super. Let's just give it a few seconds. It's also good because it gives some people time to join in case they're a bit late. So they're still answering to Alex's. Oh, there you go. Patrice. Okay, so everybody can hear us. So now we can start. So my name is Flavia. I am the Chief Scientist at Seneca Learning, and I'm very happy to host this webinar for parents. We have done a lot of webinars for teachers, but we've just started recently to do webinars for parents as well. So we did one, when was it, Alex? Like a month ago. It was the first one, and this is the second one, but we will keep trying to do more and more, especially if you keep coming and recommending it to your friends and other parents in your school. So because we really want to provide this type of knowledge and information to parents as well as teachers. So how is this going to work? This will be about 1 hour and a bit of webinar. I will start with Alex and myself. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about Seneca's parent platform and parent services and tutoring services. So it will be a very quick presentation. I know you're here for Patrice, so we're going to just really be very short and concise. But I think it's really cool for you to know about Seneca's parent platform and tutoring services because they have been helping millions, literally, of kids around the world. So it's a really good service that we are very happy to be part of. So we're going to let you know about that. And then Patrice will start with the main talk. So important information is that everything is going to happen on the chat. So you can see us, you can hear us, but all the interactions in the chat. And we cannot see each other live, but we can still talk to each other. So the more you use the chat, the better, the more interactive, the more engaging this presentation will be. So any thoughts that you have, any questions, especially questions, I'm sure Patrice loves questions. So anything that you want to say, anything that you want to comment, any like personal experience that you want to share that you have had with your child or with learning or with yourself when you were a child, anything, just comment. And I'll keep an eye on the chat. Any questions that you have, I will put them aside and then Patrice will answer them in the end after her presentation. So there will be a time for Q&A. So do make sure that you make the most of this presentation and just ask all the questions that you want and comment and interact with all the other, at the moment, 350 people who are here watching us live. Okay, so I think we can start now. So I'm gonna give the word to Alex so he can introduce you to the tutoring service that we offer at Seneca.
Great stuff. Thank you for that, Flavia. Hi there, everybody. My name's Alex. I'm from Seneca. And I'm just going to give a really brief overview of exactly what Seneca tutoring system is, how it works, and what you can get out of it, really. It's worth explaining, actually, because it is slightly different to the tutoring you might expect and might have sort of come across before. It's not like a sort of traditional sit-down one-to-one with the tutor to go through stuff, but actually it's sort of quite different. It's a little bit interesting, a little bit innovative. And we've actually found that students get along really well with it, actually. So without further ado, I'm just gonna share the old screen and get the PowerPoint up. Great stuff. Okay. I'm hoping everybody can see that. Good stuff. Okay, so an introduction to Seneca tutoring. So what exactly is Seneca tutoring? Essentially, there are two parts to it whenever you get a Seneca tutoring subscription. So the first thing is that you get complete access to all of Seneca's premium resources. And what that means is that you get access to really like the free reign of the app and the site. So you get all of our premium courses, and what that means is different and sort of better and more tailored arrangements of the material. So there's one called Hyperlearning, which is quite quick fire, great for revision, sort of flashcard stuff. We've got one sort of called Predicted Papers, where we try and predict what might come up in summer, and that's great for exam technique and for sort of getting more exam style content into students. And we also have what we call our premium learning modes, which is where you can go back and just look at the things you got wrong on our courses, which is great for sort of just filling in those gaps. And we also have one called Smart Learning, which is where our algorithms will sort of learn from you a little bit and suggest what to learn next in order to sort of boost memory retention. Super good for just getting a little bit more structure on the normal site. But the main thing that I want to speak about here is the instant homework and revision support system, because that's really where the tutoring comes in. So I'll just explain exactly what that is. Instant homework and revision support, distilled into a single sentence, what it is a team of tutors ready to give instant support in any subject. So to give a kind of example of how this would work, suppose that a student was sort of at home doing some, biology revision or some biology homework or something, and, they get stuck on photosynthesis or something like that. Essentially what they can do is they can have our tutoring system open, hop on over to there and type in a question like, I don't understand photosynthesis, someone help me out. And we'll have one of our tutors get back to them as fast as they can with answers and help and resources, maybe link them to stuff on Seneca to help them out. And so it's really good for that quick sort of day-to-day help. It's worth saying that this is sort of one subscription that is unlimited, provides unlimited questions in all of the subjects we cover. So there's absolutely no need to like buy in for maths, to buy in for science, to buy in for biology. It's just one subscription that covers all of the subjects, and you can ask as many questions as you like, sort of after schools and on weekends, essentially, and it runs all the way through the holidays. What's really important with this system is that we get the tutors to respond within 5 to 10 minutes, and 10 minutes is really the upper bound of that estimate. More often than not, it is super quick, and that's great for motivation, because we always find that, if a student's stuck on something for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, something like that, then demotivation kicks in. That's when procrastination happens, and you just sort of stop the good work. So it's great for getting that quick support. And it's worth saying as well that all of the tutors are really quite high quality. The vast majority of them are either sort of Oxbridge grads or Top Russell Group University grads. And that means they're really passionate about their subjects, very knowledgeable about them as well. And the access is really easy. You can literally have this system up in like another tab of your browser while you're doing some other homework, or you could have it on your phone or something like that. And it's worth saying as well that there are more sort of innovative ways to use it than simply typing in a question. I've seen plenty of students like take pictures of their essays, send those in, or send in documents for longer form stuff for A-levels, for instance. And you can sort of say, oh, this essay is out of 24 marks. Would you mind marking it and giving me some feedback, some help? And you can have a conversation then with the tutor to work out exactly where you might have improved. So it's really good for sort of getting that help that you need. It's worth saying as well that included in there is some additional revision support. So you can actually send off for a personalized revision timetable. This is fantastic for getting a bit more structure on Seneca. You can tell us exactly sort of which subjects you're doing and how long over which you'd like the timetable to run. And what we'll do is we'll have our tutors put together for you a personalized timetable that breaks everything down by week, by subject, by subtopic. And then it'll link straight through to all of the resources on Seneca. So you can literally move through those, tick them off as you go. And yeah, great for just getting a bit more structure, especially as we approach exams, another round of mocks coming soon as well. We also are doing increasingly more and more and more video lessons. When there's like a very popular topic, what we do is we make sure that the tutors are putting together video lessons that are there accessible all the time in our tutoring system. So, they might put together a few minutes on a chapter or an act in Macbeth or something, or on like erosion from geography, things like that. And that's just great for getting that little bit more depth. And of course, this also comes with all that access to the premium courses and learning modes. So really it is like the highest level of support we offer when it comes to making sure that you're exam ready and making sure that just day-to-day homework is up to scratch. So in terms of the benefits of this sort of style of tutoring specifically, it's so good for that broad-based coverage because it does do all the subjects. There's no need to sort of buy sort of like hourly tutoring for individual stuff. And it really is at your fingertips. Like I say, you can have it open in your browser and send off a quick message or take a picture, like I say, get those quick responses. And that's great for confidence. It keeps up the motivation, keeps up the momentum. And like I say, exam technique really works well as well, because you can send in, bits of past papers and ask exactly, how would I answer this question? And our tutors will be able to tailor that to the exam board that's needed. So just the last thing here is just briefly look at the pricing of that. There's essentially two ways to buy it. You can either buy it annually every 12 months. That one's just $29.99 a month, or seasonally every 4 months. And that one's $39.99 a month. So yeah, that's essentially the entire tutoring system. Thanks so much for listening. And yeah, I'll hand things back to Flavia.
Hi, thanks, Alex. That was very, very good, very well explained. There were a few questions here just before you go in terms of what kind of content we cover and what kind of year groups. So can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes, let's just have a quick look. So in terms of what we cover, we really do the whole range of secondary school stuff. So we actually break things down. We have a special channel for just Key Stage 3 people, a special channel just for GCSE people, and a special channel just for A-level people. So it's really great for sort of staying in the community and the level of content at which you're working, because you can see there's all like-minded other people who are revising as well. So it's super good for that. And of course, like if your subscription continues through different years, we'll of course move you up from Key Stage 3 to GCSE or A-level or whatever it is. And then you'll have access to the kinds of tutors needed to answer the level of content that you're at. So yeah, we do try and cover both all of the subjects and all of the years. Let's just have another look.
Yeah, there's a question about England and Scotland, and I guess other countries.
Yeah, so it covers essentially, in terms of which subjects it covers, it essentially covers all of the subjects that we do on the site already. So if you have a look through those, then you'll be able to see exactly which ones we do. What it's worth saying that when it comes to exam boards or Scottish things or English things or whatever it is, the tutors in there sort of will have degrees in their subjects or in cognate disciplines. So they've got plenty of knowledge to apply it to really any exam board. All you would need to do is simply say, oh, by the way, this question is for EdXL, and we'll be able to make sure that that's tailored exactly to that. So yeah, that should be absolutely fine.
Cool. Let me just have one more question and then we move on. So there we have time for three, but I think that's a good question. In terms of families, do we offer a family package?
So unfortunately, at the moment, we don't offer a family package to my knowledge, but this is something that we're sort of looking at. It is at the moment a subscription for each child. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if you want to know more about that, there's the website over there. So it's going through at the bottom there, but basically just look for Seneca Learning Parents and you'll find everything that you need there. And there's Alex's contact and you can get in touch with him. And I will send his slides and everything on email. So you will have access to all the information so you can read it more carefully and get in touch with him if you have any other questions. But thank you so much, Alex. That was great. And let me tell you a little bit more about the rest of Seneca for parents that we have. So that was the tutoring service. And now I will tell you about the parent platform, and that will be the last bit before Patrice, but it does have to do with what she's saying because Seneca is all about cognitive science and effectively studying. So let me just share my screen and then can do this. Okay, so just so you know, this is the main website for parents. So when you go here on senecalearning.com/parent, you'll be able to see the parent platform, which is what I'm showing you right now, which is here. And then the Seneca tutoring is here. So you have access to both of them from this page. Okay, so what is the Seneca parent platform? This is actually a free service that we offer for parents. And the idea is that everything that your child does on Seneca will be reported to you here. And you have live real-time access to everything that child's doing. So here I have an example child, James, and I can see how long James has studied per month of last year and even per day. Well, he hasn't done anything the last 7 days, but I can see everything that he's done in the period of time. Here I can see his recent activity, so I can see when was the last time that he logged in, what he did, how well he did the task or the assignment. Here I see all the assignments that he has to do. So all the assignments that teachers have set for him. So here, for example, I can see that he has one assignment that is due in 1 day and he hasn't done it yet. So I can go to him and be like, "Hi, James, you haven't done your assignment yet. What's going on? Do you need any help? Do you need any support?" And I can even preview the assignment. So if I click here, then I can have a look. So it's an assignment, a maths assignment about angles, and I can preview everything that he has to complete for the assignment. And if I go on past assignments, then I get to see everything that he has already done. So for example, this one, he completed in around 5 minutes and he got 95% correct. This one, he did it in 9 minutes, only got 59% correct. I can see the name of the assignment, the name of the teacher, when it was set, and I can still preview the assignment and see everything that was, all the questions and all the content that was covered in the assignment. So it's a really, really good way for you to keep track and of what your child's doing to help them. So Patrice is going to talk exactly about that, how you can help your child to learn better. And this is a very good starting point because you have the data to then go on and help them. And then you can also see just an overview in each course that that child is studying on Seneca. You can see the total learning time, the average score, the sessions completed, and the correct answers. And here we have other resources for parents as well. So this is all free. So do go on our website, so senecalearning.com/parents, and you'll see here's the tutoring and here is the parent platform. Cool. So let's start with Patrice. Let me stop my screen and add Patrice. Okay. Patrice, do you want to introduce yourself or start with the presentation? Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get started with the presentation.
Fantastic. So let's start now.
Hello, I'm Patrice Bain. Thank you, Seneca, for inviting me to speak today. And thanks to all of you for joining me as we discuss empowering the teaching triangle, that all important link between student, your child, parent, you, and the teacher. You will see this little logo throughout my talk. I really like this quote. Children are more alike than different in terms of how they think and learn. Think about that. No matter where in the world your child is, no matter what language is spoken, no matter if you are at the top school in your city, in your country, or not, children are more alike than different in terms of how they think and learn. And today I'm going to be discussing those very things that make all of us more alike than different in how we think and learn. What is powerful teaching? Powerful teaching takes the latest in what we now know about learning, based in robust research, and combines it with evidence-gathered strategies that we know boost learning and knowledge retention. And best of all, these are things that you can do at home. Every first day of class, my students hear me say, "I'm your teacher, and I'm going to teach you how to learn." Why do I start my first day like that? Because so often, after several weeks, a month, students come up to me and say, "Mrs. Bain, I have a B or I have an A in your class." And I excitedly say, "I know." But their demeanor changes. And they say, "But I never get good grades. I'm not smart." My enthusiastic response is always, "But look at you now. What is the only difference? Now you're learning how to learn." How can we have educational systems in this day and age where we know so much about learning, where students, where children will begin to internalize failure? We know how to change this. I conducted a national survey and I asked, what are the 2 top things that would help you with your child's learning? Ponder for a moment. What would your response be? Did you have those in mind? Understanding the basics of learning. We now know so much more than when we were students. We know how to help children study. Parents would often ask me, how much is too much? How much is not enough? I'm not sure what to do. Let me help. I'm going to start with same thing I would tell my students. How do we learn? There are 3 steps: encoding, storage, retrieval. Now, encoding is where we get information in. Teachers excel at this. We're taught how to do this. And it could be through lectures, through books, through articles, through video clips. Oh, we have hundreds of ways. And you might be thinking, but as a parent, I didn't attend teacher prep programs. How do I know how to encode? You have been doing it since day 1. When you get these wonderful items into your children's heads, when you are building memories with skills, with family lore, with beliefs and values, with beauty, you are also an expert in encoding, getting in. The second step is storage. We get it in, and there it is, right? As my co-author, Dr. Pooja Agarwal, says in Powerful Teaching, often we focus on getting that information in. What if instead we focused on getting information out? And that leads us to that third step, retrieval. Encoding, storage, retrieval. That's retrieval. Whenever we bring forth memories, we are retrieving. whether it's that great vacation we took, whether it's family lore, whether it's being out with friends, whether it was that great cup of coffee yesterday. These are all ways that we retrieve, we bring forth memories. So why is it this is often a look that we get from our students when we ask them to retrieve? Why does it often bring forth anxiety? We know why. It happens when retrieval is infrequent, and it happens if retrieval is used for high-stakes exams. If our children learn something in September and they don't go over it again until a big test in December, that produces anxiety. It's almost as if they have to start over because retrieval was not frequent. It was not used throughout the course of study, and it was for a high-stakes test. In a research study, 1,500 high school students were asked, does retrieval practice make you more or less anxious for tests? And why? Because when retrieval has been used throughout a course of study, students are ready. Students are ready, and anxiety lessens. So let me talk about how we can increase learning through power tools. And again, these can be done at school and also at home. But what are the power tools? The three I'm going to discuss today are ones based in hundreds of research studies that we know boost learning. And the three I'm going to talk about today: retrieval practice, spacing, and feedback-driven metacognition. Let me explain. We love these because they're not a fad. They're not based on anecdotes, but actually based in research. We know, due to these studies, that using these principles boost long-term learning, knowledge retention, and social emotional learning. We know that they work from young children all the way up to us, and how making a small shift will make a big difference. And I will show you how you can use these at home. So let's start with the first power tool, retrieval. And retrieval, again, is pulling information out. A study in my classroom looked at using retrieval throughout a chapter. And simply by having students recall versus simply being taught information made a big difference at the end on a test. And at the very end of the year, we decided, let's see if this works through here. So we gave an unannounced test, but don't worry, it did not go into the grade book. We were just curious, and we wanted to know how much would the students remember at the end of the year. We didn't want them to know. We didn't announce the test because we wanted to make sure they didn't study beforehand. We can see the simple act of retrieving information throughout a course of study really helps our children remember to retain knowledge. But how could you do this at home? How can you use retrieval at home? Questions I would ask, I would encourage my parents to ask. Where did you go in geography today? What was it like? Or tell me a story from today's history. Or if we were to paint your room, how would we know how much paint to buy? Why do you think the science experiment turned out like that? Rather than when your child comes home asking, "How was your day?" Ask them questions that involve a why or a how. And simply by changing the questions you ask can help promote retrieval with your child. Just because you see something doesn't mean you know it. For example, without looking at any of Apple products, how well do you know the Apple logo? Which one is it? It's the middle one on the top. Or another example, think of a coin that you use all the time. If you had a circle on a piece of paper, could you draw it? Would you know what words are on there? Is there a place or a person? Is there a date? Where is that located? How well, without looking, could you illustrate that coin? The reason why I ask these is because often this type of language, encouraging our children to look at something, to reread your notes, look over your notes, reread the chapter, look at what you highlighted, leads to ineffective study strategies. Just because you see it doesn't mean you know it. We need to get our children to be able to retrieve, not just look, but retrieve information. I often use this with my students, that as a teacher or you as a parent, you're responsible for the encoding, getting information in. But it is only the student who can retrieve. Not the teacher, not Google, not friends, not parents. Only the child, the student, can retrieve. Time to ponder. At home, are you having your children review? Do you see them review? Or do they retrieve? Something to think about. Our second power tool is spacing. What is spacing? But spreading retrieval over time. Now, I've talked before about how you two are experts at encoding. You know you've taught things to your children. You've seen them study, and you might ask them a question and ooh, these kind of looks. There's a reason why. It's because forgetting is a part of learning. As soon as we learn something, we start forgetting it. And that's really important for parents to know. That when they took a test and aced it and got such a great score 3 weeks ago, doesn't mean they still remember it today. That's something that you taught them 2 weeks ago, last week, doesn't mean they remember it today. It's important for all of us to know that forgetting is a part of learning. In fact, there's something that's called the forgetting curve. When we teach something, like I said, as soon as we finish, we start forgetting it. What we want to do is 24 hours later, bring that to mind again by retrieving. And then 3 days, bring it up. Now, I'm not talking about doing a major assignment. It can be something as simple as asking a question. What were those 3 steps of learning? Encoding, storage, retrieval. And then in a week, ask a question again. Have your students retrieve. Later, I will show you some strategies that they can use. But if you see that they're working on something, jot yourself a note. Great time to ask if you're in the car, around the dinner table. Just being able to have your child retrieve information gets it into their long-term memory. We talked about retrieval. We talked about spacing. Next, metacognition. Discriminating the known versus the unknown. Have you ever seen your child study really hard for a test and they are so confident, but then you see the test? Again, there's a reason why this happens. It happens when we haven't provided our children with opportunities to know if they know it or not. It's very typical when our children study that they look, oh, I know this, I know that, I know this. Oops, I don't know that one. I know this, I know that. They tend to study what they already know because it feels good and it builds up a false illusion of confidence. Instead, we need to be able to help our children figure out what they know versus what they don't so they can spend their time more efficiently on what they don't know. And again, at the end, I will give you some strategies. First, let's talk about some tips for home. A designated spot. It's really important for your child to have a designated spot. Someplace that is free of distractions, that has supplies. Can you imagine if you worked on a hobby and every time you went to work on the hobby, you had to go get supplies from someplace and then go someplace else and it was never the same and you'd realize you didn't have everything? It's important to have a designated spot. It's important to have a routine. Students, children do well when they know in advance what the routine is. Do they work on home when they get home from school? Do they have a snack? Do they play for an hour and then do work? It's your rules, your home. You get to set up, but it's important that there's consistency in that routine. And finally, multitasking. Honestly, we can't do it. We think we can, but we can't. In fact, there has been a lot of research on this very subject. When we are learning new things, it basically goes into working memory. And we can only Concentrate, learn 4 to 7 new things at a time, occupying 4 to 7 things, occupying our working memory. So if we're working on something and we hear our phone or it vibrates and we look over and see, even though it may take 10 seconds, by the time we go back to the work, we've already lost where we were. Multitasking. What if using a phone is really important to your child? Build it into your routine. Study for 30 minutes, take a 5-minute break, check your phone, put it away, come back. Look at how are the routines? How is multitasking? How is the spot for your child? How are you figuring these out for your child? And now let me talk about some of these strategies for home. First of all, I would like to let you know that if you go to powerfulteaching.org and go to the tab that says Resources, you will find free downloads of the strategies that I'm going to be talking about. Remember when I talked about metacognition, that we really want to help our children figure out what they know versus what they don't? I developed what I call the 4 steps of metacognition. I'd like you to take a few seconds and read over these, and then I'll show you how they work. Here we go. Rather than using flashcards, I developed a plan to have my students use retrieval cards. If your child uses flashcards, this would be a very easy thing, an easy way for them to do their flashcards as well. But it uses those 4 steps of metacognition. Step 1, you make a JOL or a judgment of learning. Do you know it or not? Go through, if you know it, put a star or a happy face. If you don't, a question mark. That's step 1. There's no books, no notes are open. Step 2, now go back and answer all the ones that you thought you knew. Step 3 is the first time that you open up your book or your notes and you find the answer to those question marks. And step 4, verify. Double check that those that you thought you knew, you did. Now, rather than having your child go through and simply copy things from a book, as often flashcards are done that way, you are having your child retrieve. Do they know it or not? And one of the best things is your student, your child, already then has a great study tool for a test. They can now concentrate on those question marks, those that they didn't know. Very simple idea, but it will help your child retrieve. I also created metacognition sheets. This is an example of one that I used with my students. It goes over the same 4 steps. Number 1, do you know it or not? Check the star or the question mark. Step 2, answer all those that you know. Step 3, open up your book, your notes, find the answer. Step 4, verify. Now, you might think, I don't know how my child would do this. Go ahead and download the template. And as your child is doing work at night, something that they learned in class, just have them write down definition or a term or a question and put it away. And then as it gets close to the test, maybe 3 or so days before, have your child pull out the metacognition sheet. They will have already had the items to know filled out. And now is the time for them to discriminate what they know and what they really need to study for the test. I also developed retrieve taking. If your child is reading at home, simply have your child stop, close the book, retrieve and write down 2 things, a short synopsis of what they read, open it, and continue reading. They could have a special notebook that they keep at home for each subject or one with dividers. But what is happening? Remember, just because you see something doesn't mean you know it. Simply by closing the book and pulling forth information, they are retrieving. And something that I thought was rather fun, and my students and parents also like this, emoji retrieval. Have your child point out an emoji and ask a question about it. What? Let's see, what are some of these? Ooh, what about history made you really angry today? Or, oh, what was something that confused you in math? Have the child pick out the emoji and help come up with a question. Are you using retrieval at home? How can you begin using retrieval? How can you incorporate spacing? Remembering that forgetting is a part of learning. How to reinforce that your child brings forth. And again, it could be a great question that you bring up. Check. Is your child able to figure out their metacognition? What they know versus what they don't? Check. I would like to thank you so much for joining me today. I have my information. There's some articles, webcasts, podcasts that I've done at patricebain.com. Remember, get your templates at powerfulteaching.org. And I'm also on Twitter. Thank you. Thank you. Together, we can help change the trajectory of our children's learning lives. Big, big thanks to Seneca for developing a platform for you to help your children. Thank you.
Great. So that was an excellent presentation, and there was some very good questions now done, especially in the end. I think people got more excited and maybe less shy. So there are still questions coming. That's great. So keep them coming. So Patrice will start by answering them in chronological order, I guess. That's fair. But I will keep notes of everything that's still being asked, and then she will get to that as well. Okay? So let's start with the question that Owen asked in the beginning. And then he was asking for more details and information about all those different terms that she explained in the beginning. So if you could go back to that, Patrice, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for asking, Owen. So, yes, there are 3 steps to learning. The first one is encoding. And encoding is that process of getting information into our heads. There are so many ways to do that, but encoding is getting it in. And storage is where the information simply is. Now, as I said, once we learn something, we start forgetting it. So, although it goes in, unless we do something with that information, we're going to forget it. And that third step is retrieval. And retrieval is the process of being able to use the information, to retrieve, to be able to pull that information out. It can be a bit more complicated because we want to be able to get information into our long-term memory, because that's where our learning is going to make more sense. But the 3 basic steps are encoding, getting it in, storage, it's there, and retrieval, being able to use it by pulling that information out.
Super. I think that made it pretty clear. That was great. So we have another question here now, which that was good too. Very interesting question by Anil. So let me put that on the screen. And it's about, I guess, children with different needs and different skills in terms of how can revision works for everybody.
Thank you, Anil. I was a teacher in the classroom for over 25 years, and I had all students. I had students who were in special education classes or with low executive functioning skills. I had students who were in gifted programs. I had all students. And what I found was there are strategies that work with whatever level your child is. The strategies I used, whether it was the 4 steps of metacognition, whether it was retrieve taking with younger children, sometimes just drawing a picture of being able to retrieve, or speaking into a microphone and making their own little video, but just making sure your child is retrieving is really important. Something that worked well with my students who had lower executive functioning was to be able to stop and just ask a question and have them give the answer, whether to write it down or just to repeat it. So the main key is to be able to have your child retrieve this information. Another strategy I like to use is 2 things. After your child has been reading or listening, just simply stop, close the book, close the screen, and say, write down 2 things that you think were really important, or tell me 2 things about that. The main thing is just making sure that your child is able to retrieve. That's what gets that into their memory better.
Super. These are great tips, and it's very good to hear that you have all this experience, not only as a researcher, as a book author, but also as a teacher in the classroom. So let's go for there are 2 questions here, but kind of related in terms of studying with music or studying with any background noise or any background activity going on.
Boy, that is a great question. I too have had teenagers who insisted that they study with music. There's a lot of research out there. How to answer this? There have been many studies that show if your child really wants to listen, that there's a difference between listening to music with words versus music without words. We know, again, to multitasking, if we are focusing on a task such as learning, and we are distracted either by, oh, I love that song, or oh, my phone, we have to switch our working memory from what we are learning, our task on hand, to whatever that is. Our brain can't do both at the same time. So sometimes working with our children, explaining that, helping our children learn how to learn, that it may take longer if you keep trying to multitask. It will take longer if you want to listen to music and get your homework done. Truly, the best thing is to get your work done, take a break, maybe work for 10 minutes, then take a break, and then come back. You're the parent, you're going to figure out what's going to work best. But often just by talking to your children about multitasking, about learning, let's be more efficient and spend less time and learn more.
That's great. Yeah, that's a harder question to answer. I guess some people will say that they work better with background things going on, but there is science, there is a working memory research showing how things happen real. Okay, so there's another question that's also very good. Not totally directed to cognitive science, I guess, but very important on learning.
Thank you, Ralph. What a great question this is. It is okay to make mistakes. In fact, there was front and center in my classroom from the very first day I started teaching was a sign that said, it's okay to make mistakes. That's the way we learn. And I think this is why it is so, so important for retrieval to be used throughout the course of study. When our children are learning something, mistakes happen, and it's good that they happen, because when we make errors, it helps us define that which we need to study, that which we still need to know. And when we use retrieval throughout the course of study, by the time we have the big test, we know what we know and what we don't, and we have therefore studied much more efficiently. There's a term called desirable difficulties, and this is another very important concept. If we present information to our children that's too easy, the information simply isn't going to stick. And if it's too hard, our children tend to get really frustrated. So we want to find that perfect place where it's not too hard and it's not too easy, that desirable difficulty, because that, when our students struggle just a bit, that's where the learning sticks. But in order to have that type of desirable difficulty, our children need to know that in the process of learning, it truly is okay to make mistakes during that time, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, the desirable difficulties concept is a really interesting one. I think it really changed how I saw things when I understood it. That it can't be too hard, it cannot be too easy. There's that very good sweet spot where things have to be. Okay, I guess almost every parent will say that. Yeah, so if the child says they don't like reading, what can we do?
That is such a good question, Jay. We can always start with, why doesn't your child like reading? Is it a desirable difficulty? Is it too hard? Is it not their interest? There can be so many reasons. But I think one of the most important things is the reading. Try to figure out why the child doesn't like the reading. Try to encourage ways to break it down so that the child feels success, whether it is through, one thing I mentioned was retrieve taking. Just stop and close the book and jot down your thoughts about it. Then go back. Find strategies. Is your child feeling overwhelmed by how much there is? Try to figure out, have a conversation with your child about the why. Because whatever the why is, there's help out there.
Yeah, that's excellent. Understanding the reasons why they don't like reading. Yeah, I think that one is related to that. That's why I moved it here. But if a child is too distracted and can't really focus, or they say they can't focus for more than 5 minutes, what can we do?
Well, of course, it's going to, first of all, always depend on the child. And secondly, if a child can devote a full 5 minutes really focusing on that, good. Then take a little break and then come back and do another 5 minutes of really focused work. Look at how old your child is. Come up, like I said, with a routine that's going to work best for your child. Maybe 5 minutes, again, if it's a desirable difficulty, maybe 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes is that frustration point. So find that routine, find the strategies that are going to work best with your child. If 5 minutes is the limit, do really well in those 5 minutes.
Yeah, and then can apply spacing and interleaving, like you said, right? It's all about the quality more than the quantity of revision. So there's a question from Richard. So I guess, how can they use technology, both in the classroom and at home? Focusing at home, because this is more for parents than teachers.
I think, thank you, Richard. I think the key, once again, is making sure that your child is retrieving the information, not simply copying, not a cut and paste, but truly, how are they using their devices that enable retrieval? And again, whether it's through retrieve taking, a metacognition sheet, retrieval cards, all of these things can be done on a device or not. But the main thing is whatever, device or not, ensuring that the child is retrieving. Please go to powerfulteaching.org and look at some of the strategies. Show them to your child. Have the child pick out some of the strategies. Just make sure they are retrieving. Another thing is, again, with spacing. If they're doing something on a device, are they able to go back? Is there some type of a spreadsheet or something that they're able to use to be able to go back and space out to revisit retrieval from a week ago, a month ago?
Yeah, It sounds great. And also, I know Richard already uses Seneca with his students at school, but the parent platform can help with that, because then you can get parents involved in the technology that they are using in the classroom as well. Okay, so I just typed, that's correct, right, Patrice? Powerfulteaching.org.
Yes.
Yep. So that's a very good website. So do go there and check it out. There'll be several tips and resources for you to use as well. So another question here by Ben. So what to do when the child gets defensive when learning?
That happens, doesn't it? I've seen it. You've seen it. It happens. Sometimes looking at why does the child get defensive? Often it's because perhaps a fear of failure, perhaps not really knowing the basics of how we learn. In my book, A Parent's Guide to Powerful Teaching, I talk a lot about how to set up an environment at home that is really conducive to learning. It's so easy for all of us to get defensive if we're not sure about something, if something is difficult for us. So being able to talk to your child about learning, about desirable difficulties, about it's okay to make mistakes, setting up that safe environment that is conducive to learning.
Yep, brilliant. That's a very good answer. There are questions here that I know they are different things, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to put them together, which is in terms of kids with special education needs. Obviously, I know that dyslexia and autism are different things, but just for the sake of time, if we can talk about special needs in general, I think that could be useful.
Like I said earlier, I found that in working with all students, the strategies that I devised, I know work. Sometimes you have to adapt a little bit more. I know there is a lot of information out there for parents regarding dyslexia. There are groups to help you. There's information out there. So I would just make sure, get involved when you have a specific question about how to work with your particular child. Check out what I have to offer, but also check out the other sites that are also there to help you.
Super. And let's go for the last question, because we're already 8 minutes past time, but that was the last question. I wanted to go through all of them because they were all very good questions. I think that kind of summarizes a lot of the struggles that we've talked about before. So if you have extra tips here.
Oh, yes. A child says a class is boring. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens. How can you, let me just give some personal experiences, because I know I have had many conversations around this topic. And sometimes it is, I will, with my own child, for example, I would say to him, how can you envision this story that's being told? How can you take what the teacher said today? How would you take that learning and make it more interesting? How would you add a twist to what that was? And sometimes just doing it that way will help the child to pay attention a little bit more, so they can put their own spin on it. And when you ask them those questions at night, what's happening? They're retrieving the information. So find little ways, little tips that you can encourage your child to engage with the information and retrieve and still have a little power, their own influence on what they're learning.
Great. That's fantastic, Patrice. Thank you. I'm sure that helped everybody who was here and who wants to help their child to learn more effectively. That was excellent, the talk and the questions. I really liked this Q&A. I hope you enjoyed as well. Do you want to say any final thing before we finish?
If I would love to have you visit my site at patricebain.com if you were interested. There's a section that has podcasts and articles. So if you would like a little bit more information, you could find it on there. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, Seneca.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for being here. Everybody who signed up on Eventbrite, you will receive a link to access this video again if you want to rewatch it or share it with your friends or share it in the school. You'll also receive Alex's presentation about tutoring and all the other info that you need to access Seneca Parent Platform, Seneca Tutoring, Patrice's website, Powerful Teaching website. I'm going to put everything on the email as well, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so just to finish, these are some of the contacts. So if you want to know more about Seneca, go to senecalearning.com. If you want to know more about the tutoring specifically, you can email Alex directly, alex@seneca.io. And this is Patrice's tweet, but then you also have her website, which is maybe even better than that. So thank you so much for being here, everybody. That was really, really great webinar. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any suggestions of new topics that we can have as webinars for parents, you can also get in touch with us, and I'll try to get there to make that happen. So thank you so much and have a great evening. And thank you, Patrice. Bye.
Thank you.